If you watch this microscopic speck float through the air, an orchid seed, you are looking at the center of a very modern theological debate. The skeptic's argument relies on a simple premise. Jesus called the mustard seed the smallest of all seeds, yet orchid seeds are demonstrably smaller. In this view, a factual error about botany invalidates any claim to divine omniscience. But this diagram illustrates what philosophers call a category error. We are taking a rigid, modern taxonomic classification chart and using it to measure the words on an ancient handwritten scroll. To resolve this contradiction, we need to stop reading the text like 21st century botanists and start thinking like 1st century Judean peasants. Look at this photograph of a Palestinian farmer plowing a rocky field. Understanding these ancient texts requires entering their dusty agricultural world rather than dragging their words into a sterile modern laboratory. The Gospel of Mark records the parable with a specific qualifier. It notes that the mustard seed is the smallest of all seeds when it is sown upon the ground. That phrase restricts the scope to local Levantine agriculture, not global botany. This botanical rendering shows the black mustard plant. Notice the tiny seed pods and individual seeds, the absolute smallest cultivated by local farmers. Yet from that minuscule start, it grows into a sprawling 12-foot shrub, developing large leaves and thick branching structures. This tree-like growth is sturdy enough for local birds to flock to it and build nests in its branches, fulfilling the literal imagery of shelter used in the story. The parable emphasizes the biological disparity between an almost invisible beginning and a massive, expansive result. There is also a linguistic layer. We communicate using hyperbolic idioms. Things happen in a heartbeat, or quiet as a mouse. This portrait of an elderly Jewish rabbi connects us to scholarly traditions. For these scholars, the mustard seed was the ultimate metric denoting absolute smallness. In ancient texts like the Mishnah and the Talmud, rabbis repeatedly use the phrase "a grain of mustard" as a standard unit of measurement. They use it to define the smallest measurable drop of blood or the slightest degree of ritual impurity. Jesus utilized this exact linguistic framework in other teachings, telling his followers they needed faith the size of a mustard seed to move a mountain. In the cultural vocabulary of ancient Judea, saying "smallest of all seeds" was the recognized idiom for the smallest conceivable thing. Accusing the text of a botanical error fails to understand how human language operates. It's identical to accusing someone of lying when they say it's raining cats and dogs. Theologians refer to this concept as divine accommodation, the idea that God communicates profound truths by scaling them down into a framework the immediate audience can easily grasp. If Jesus had attempted to be scientifically accurate by modern standards, he would have compared the kingdom of heaven to the seed of a South American epiphytic orchid. Looking at this historical photograph of ordinary people on a winding Levantine road, we can see his true audience. An anachronistic metaphor about exotic orchids would have completely alienated the local farmers and tradesmen listening to him. The vital goal of the lesson, teaching how the kingdom of God would grow from a single point into a global presence, would have been lost in confusion. Instead, Jesus met his audience exactly where they were. He utilized their daily agricultural realities and their well-worn cultural idioms to ensure the point landed with clarity. By choosing the mustard seed, Jesus utilized a message perfectly designed to take root in local soil and eventually cover the globe.